up, y'all? All right, we are live, and today is a special day. Today, we're going to be analyzing live a co-living real estate investment. And if you know anything about me, you know that I built the majority of my $22 million real estate portfolio through buying deals creatively financed, capital raising for those deals. So buying these properties using none of my own money by providing great investment opportunities to others, and through the co-living management strategy, which means I buy a house and then I rent it out by the room to others. Very simple, very straightforward. There are some amazing tools I'm going to show you today, in addition to the deal analysis, but also the incredible pad split platform, where you can very quickly get some amazing data where you can analyze these deals. And I'm going to show you all that stuff live today. So let's get to it. If you do not yet have a copy of the Super Investor Calculator, I have an absolutely free version and I give it away. If you do not have a copy of that, I'm going to drop the link for you because you need that. This is literally a cheat code to help you analyze your deals way more effectively, whether you're buying traditionally, cash, co-living, traditionally, cash, creative finance, whether it's subject to seller finance, the combination, so a hybrid deal. And also if you're using like a DSCR loan, traditional DSCR, right? Investment versus non-investment, but a new loan from a bank, you can definitely go that route too. All of it is covered there. So I'm dropping that link for you guys, whoever's watching on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, I'm going to have to do a little bit differently for you guys. So it's all there. Go for it. I'm also going to drop the link for the free Wealth to Real Estate School community, because that's where you're going to grab copies of the calculator, trainings. This is one live training. What we're not going to have time to do is necessarily comp, how to gather, like what's the new property taxes, insurance, all that. We're going to take data that was provided, input it into the calculator just to show you what a breeze it is to underwrite these investments. And what we're going to do then is I'm going to show you, if I was to raise capital for this deal, what the pro version of this calculator, how it helps you immediately determine how much capital should you raise, what the returns are for you and for your partners. We're going to go through all that. Live deal analysis, determining how much money you can raise for this deal and what the returns would look like for your partner. That second piece, that's part of the pro calculator. That's for my super investors. That's for real estate investors that are already doing the thing and they're looking to scale by leveraging these more advanced strategies. So you have a few properties, you have some money set aside, you want to scale to actual financial freedom. That's what that's for. But I provide so much free tools, resources, all this good stuff already in Wealth to Real Estate. And I dropped the link for you guys so there's Wealth to Real Estate, super easy to get into. And if you're on Instagram, the easiest way to get this info, go to the link in my bio. I literally give it all to you. So let's start analyzing this deal. It's gonna be sick. All right, with that being said, let's start screen sharing. Present, share screen. We're going to do this entire screen. Excellent. Cool. Let me hover myself over. So the first thing, right, if you are in Wealth to Real Estate, right, you can sign up for absolutely free school. Here's the link if you want to just get there. I just dropped it. If you're on my Instagram, I literally just put it all in there. But come on in. You're going to go to the classroom. And if you need more assistance with analyzing deals, well, literally, if you're looking at traditionally analyzing deals, creatively analyzing deals, if you're someone who wants to build your skill sets through bird dogging, you want to learn more about co-living, it's all in there. If you want to actually define your blueprint to financial freedom, I give it all away. Tools, resources, all this good stuff for you to help you on your journey. Please take advantage of it all. These are the things that I wish I had when I was starting out. So that being said, you're going to grab your copy of the free calculator, right? And I dropped the link for you, but so I've got the pro version is what we're going to use. Very similar, except the capital raising is the biggest difference. So I'm going to grab a copy. This is the brand new version that I put out. I'm going to give you guys a very quick overview. All right, so we're going to zoom out a lot. Looks busy. I apologize, but it's really not too bad. So actually, the very top, all this is just some info. If you want to get connected with me, you want to use some of the tools that I use to analyze deals, all that good stuff. If you want those free tools I was talking about from Pad Split so you can analyze deals, for example, if you want to be able to see exactly the entire map where the Pad Split platform operates, what the different data that they have for each different city, what the number of units they currently have available, how many people are searching for those, what the weekly rates are. Like, people ask, how do I get all these numbers? How do I get all these numbers? This is how I get these numbers. You got to use tools. You got to use data from somewhere. For long-term rentals, you go on Zillow, Redfin. You go on tools like Rentometer. For short-term rentals, you use AirDNA, Data Rabu. For co-living, this is the number one. Plus, you can look on Zillow and all that by the room. This is the number one tool. This is almost exclusively where I grab all of my data to determine which co-living deals make sense for me. All right. So very simple property information. You're going to put in the property info that you're going to analyze. Then you're going to do the entry costs for the property. So this is the entry costs are what does it take? How much money up front will it need for you to acquire the property, renovate and furnish the property, and then have some reserves set aside for your property. Depending on your management strategy, you're going to have additional entry costs. So co-living, you're going to need additional renovations to add rooms and furnishings for those rooms. Short-term rental, it might be additional renovations and furnishing costs, and same for short-term, but they vary. Also, long-term, you might have other ones, but for the most part, it should be pretty straightforward. So you're going to have your entry costs, the different costs it takes to get in, renovate and furnish, and reserves for your property. Next, this is like the magic of this calculator that really no one else can match, is you can determine the various ways that you want to acquire this property. So for example, you can buy this thing as a hybrid creative deal, which means there is, let's zoom in even more. Perfect. You're going to have the property value. You're going to pay some money to the seller. You're going to take over some of the existing loan subject to, and then the remainder is being seller financed. You can do all of that in this calculator. If you're just doing subject to, great. You can use it for just subject to calculator. You're buying a property, you're just taking over the existing debt, paying the rest out to the seller as cash up front, no financing, great. Or the opposite, they own it outright and you're buying this property and the seller is financing it to you. You can do only seller finance as well. You're buying this thing traditionally or through a debt service coverage ratio loan, go conventional or DSCR or whatever other loan product you're using. Select your down payment, right? The purchase price, and then analyze this deal. And then if you're buying it cash, which I'm not a huge fan of unless you're refinancing, but that's not the point of today's call. So we're going to look for is a creatively financed deal. So it's going to have subject to and seller financing. We're going to have a lot of these fixed expenses built in from the debt, taxes, insurance as well. And then we're not going to worry too much about balloons and all that stuff for the sake of this calculator, for the sake of this analysis. And then what we're going to do is you can choose to analyze this property as a long-term rental, co-living, midterm, short-term, all on the same calculator. You could do all four, you could do just one, whatever. It's ultimately up to you. And this calculator will then automatically tell you per strategy, what are the returns for that strategy, right? What are the returns for long-term, co-living, midterm, and short-term? What is the best strategy, right? The highest and best use strategy. Which one gets you the highest cash on cash return? And then you select which one you want to do the long-term analysis on. Once you select, I want the long-term, co-living, midterm, short-term, whatever, it'll do 20-year analysis for you. It'll even tell you, okay, well, I think you can negotiate automatically. If you change the, in this instance, if you lower the purchase price and the down payment, here's how this deal can be improved. Or if they're seller financing, if you reduce the interest rate, here's how this deal could be improved. And when does it become a deal based on your criteria? It's pretty freaking powerful. Next is going to be the other people's money tab. This is the capital raising, right? This is the capital raising piece. It'll automatically tell you what are the returns for you and your partner 1, 5, 10, and 20 years out. That's what this tells you very instantly. People ask me, how is it that I structure my deal so quickly? Well, once you do the analysis, the automations in the calculator very simply tell you, if I go 50% ownership, 50% cash flow, my partner funds the whole deal, right? They bring all the money to fund the deal, and we go 50-50. This is exactly how I know what their cash flow is going to be and my cash flow, what their total returns are going to be and what my returns are going to be, what their cash on cash return is going to be and what their return on investment is going to be. This is how I do it so quickly, because I created this amazing tool that I use all the time for every single one of my deals. This is a bonus for the pro version for my super investors, right? The free version doesn't have the capital raising piece, but it's got everything you need for the deal analysis. So with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so we're going to choose a property. We're just going to go randomly, and we're going to use the Super Investors Creative Deal Portal, a database for super investors, a variety of creative deals. Think of Zillow, but creative deals through various wholesalers that are putting deals in here. And we're going to, we could do Port Charlotte. Let's choose somewhere. Okay, so Jacksonville's good because Jacksonville, this property might be too small, but Jacksonville is good because it's a core pad split market. So I know we'll have data, right? All I want is data for us to be able to analyze this deal. Straight subject to deal. How big is it? It's a little small, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,536 square feet. We'll come back to this one, but this one's viable because if you look here, if you zoom out, you go to Florida. One of my rules is I almost exclusively buy properties in pad split markets for co-living. Does it mean that's the case for every property? No. I own one big co-living in Savannah. I own some short-term rentals and a long-term rental there as well. We own one in Clarksville, Tennessee. So it's not 100% the case, but the majority of my properties are in core pad split markets, right? These blue bubbles are core pad split markets. These gray bubbles are markets in which that they're expanding in. When I started doing this in 2023, it was like 3 blue bubbles. This is amazing to see right now. The level of the level of the markets that they're expanding into, especially some of these really expensive markets where I already own properties, but because now you're getting some of the best benefits. You're getting the cash flow of co-living, right? That you used to only be able to get through cheaper properties. So you're getting those benefits, but also more wealth benefits because you're buying bigger, better properties in better locations, which makes co-living that much better. And the more they expand, the easier it gets to buy properties in these markets. All right, so Jacksonville's one. So you see Florida's like a huge one for co-living. So we'll potentially look at that one. Let me see if I can find the cool thing is filtering. So let's see if we can find, we'll do Florida, Georgia. Maybe we'll do Texas as well. All right, and then we're going to do hybrid. Let's go. Ideally, so hybrid is seller finance and subject to, because I want to show you how to do both of those. There's a Houston one, 4-bed, 4-bath, nice size. So this might be the one we play with. Austin's pretty good. Let's see. If we go to pad split and see which one's got some really good data. So Houston. So a lot are still emerging, but we got Houston, solid amount of units and way higher demand than unit count. That is very huge for me. I want to make sure that there is way more people looking for rentals than there are available, right? Current and upcoming, but there's a lot coming in too, another 112. These are rooms, right? Not 112 properties, but 112 rooms. Let's go look at Austin, a very expensive market in Texas, which is great for creative right now because a lot of these properties were worth a lot more just a couple years ago, but because tech jobs are leaving, because interest rates are so high, because people realize, oh shit, I don't actually want to live in Texas, especially the tech guys who came from California and elsewhere. And they're like, oh wait, Texas is not exactly what I thought. Even in the kind of the bluest part of Texas, they're, that's great for creative because the prices have dropped significantly. Not as much active units or demand, but these are pretty solid numbers here. All right, so we can do one of those. If you want to drop in the comments, you have a preference of which market, drop it in the comment and I can also just choose that one. Here's another Jacksonville one. Let's see the size. I'll tell you, if you watched my buy box training last week, 3-bed, 2-bath minimum, no HOA, right? Ideally 1,500 or more square feet. If it's below that, I don't really want to deal with it. So let's just filter based on that as well. Bed, 3, 4, 5, bath, 2, 3, 4, 5. Square footage, 1,500 or more. Let's just make it easy on myself. So Port Charlotte's good. I own one in Port Charlotte. Maybe this Houston one's the one we'll play with. You want Denver, Spencer? Well, let's add Colorado in here. I don't think there's as much data in Denver right now. It is a pad split market, but it's core, but it really is emerging. It's newer. I think it was literally this year or late last year. Yeah, see, there's not a ton of data. All these that are gray, they're emerging, so there's no data on them. There's 26 active units. There's a solid amount of searches, but there's only so many active units. This data can be very inaccurate because if your sample size is too small, it's just more risk. Philly, Hardeep, I wouldn't personally. I know nothing about Philly. I don't even want to own a Philly. I love that for you. The principles will apply nonetheless for Philly. All right, let's do Gainesville. Good Florida college area. Is Gainesville even on the pad split? Oh yeah, there we go. Might be maybe newer. Yeah. Gainesville is a solid market in general, but not enough data for me. I mean, 91% occupancy, books really fast. This is because of the college town effect, right? They're really open to co-living. Living multiple people in one house is so common. I did that for the majority of my college experience. And even in the military, we did that through house hacking, but we would buy a 2 to 4 unit, live in one unit, and then rent out the others. And even the other ones that were renting out were to military, because we were military, and they were pretty much splitting it by the room already. So this is such a common thing. It's just more talked about now, especially with pad split emerging and like scaling so much. And they just passed, I believe, 20,000 active rentals on their platform, which is incredible. All right, let's do San Antonio's good. All right, I'm going to just stick with this Jacksonville one right now because I know there's solid amount of, oh, that Jacksonville one that was there was too small, I think. We could do Gainesville. Was this small? 4-bed, 2-bath. Shoot, I might buy this one. Let's see. 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,400 square foot. All right, let's look at the photos and see if we like it, guys. Okay, nice big, huge kitchen that opens into a living room. Hopefully that can be one additional bedroom. We'll see. The idea is most properties don't have enough bedrooms. You convert dining rooms, you convert living rooms, you convert areas of the house into more bedrooms, or you even split large rooms. I don't know what this is. I mean, it's probably a bedroom because the fan, maybe that's a closet. Sometimes we get lucky and we get a floor plan. If not, we'll also check Zillow. When it's really nice properties like this, I assume this is a property that's on market that a wholesaler has provided them an option agreement to be able to find another buyer. Yeah, looks like a flip. I mean, you saw the blue on the dishwasher. So the blue is the like brand new sticker on it, just for anyone who hasn't done renovations yet. Okay, hopefully it's not like in the sticks. I mean, it really looks like it is. So I'm just looking more for a floor plan. I mean, there's got a lot of aerial shots here, but I'm really looking for a floor plan. Parking is not going to be an issue here, so that's cool. That was a huge room. I'm looking at the last one because usually if there's a floor plan, that's usually where it goes. All right, let's take this address. Oh, 13637. 39th Ave. All right, let's see. Oh, not for sale currently. Okay, so it's an off-market deal. Even better. It says 3-bed, 2-bath. Let me check the map real fast. If this one's too far out, then it's not really going to do us a lot of good. Disc golf, park. Where's the airport? Where's the University of Florida? S is kind of far out. If I look at pad splits market, yeah, there's like nothing over here. Let's not do this one. I want to give you guys a good one to actually work with. That's the thing. One of you guys may end up buying this deal, so that's great. Like I said, I might end up buying this deal. Port Charlotte, I love Port Charlotte, don't get me wrong, but it just does not have, what's the square footage? It does not have enough pad split data for us to make a good decision on. I can because I own properties there. You may not feel comfortable doing so because you don't actually know. See, 33952. Let's go there and see. Three three nine five two. Try that again. All right, sometimes it gets a little finicky on us. 20255. Was I too? Oh, man, I'm not too far off. Where does it fall under? It's not even here. What's the 33952? Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I really want to get you guys some good data. That's the thing. We could do Houston. Maybe let's just do Houston. Houston's fine. Huge house. My concern here is this thing's not going to be somewhere of use. Oh, actually, looks like it's in city limits. That's good. It's pretty far out, but 77015. Let's go to Texas now. If I was watching, sorry if I'm making you nauseous. Yeah, it's too far out. Looks like it's basically this. It's pretty far out. It's in between Crosby. We're like so close, but 77050, is that what I said? 77015. There we go. It's probably not a lot, but let's see. Houston sprawls, so that's good for the sake of this. It's not a lot of data here. And I don't want to just use, what you don't want to do is just use city data for a zip code that's so far out from the actual city. So if you just were like, oh yeah, I'm going to do Houston, great. But this data is accounting for all of Houston. And obviously the ones in here are going to rent for more, be more full and all that because it's the city center. That makes a lot of sense. We might just go ahead and use that and just use the best password data. I want to show you guys how to use the calculator for creative financing. So I'm not going to do San Antonio. Yeah, let's go with that one. We'll just do Houston for the sake of it. All right, so I lost it, but there we go. All right, Houston. So we're going to want to see is we're going to pull this up and look at this property online. We want to see how many bedrooms we think we can get there. But first, what we should do is get the debt information there. So let's start with that. And then we'll worry about the actual other piece. So, all right. So let's get it. I'm going to have to zoom in. I do apologize. So we're going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. All right. So this property, and if you don't know what information you need to be able to analyze a deal, once again, Wealth through Real Estate. Go to, in the Financial Freedom Blueprint, go down to Resources, and click Creative Deal Analysis Checklist. This is all the information you need to analyze a deal, any deal, and then if there's creative, what you need for sub 2, what you need for seller finance. If you need both, it's there. Free copy of that. Wealth through Real Estate. I'm literally giving you guys all these freaking things that I wish someone would have given me when I started. I had to figure all this stuff out for myself. Thankfully, I've still been able to buy $20+ million of real estate, but it'd be better for you to fast track your journey through learning from other people. That's the goal. All right. So this property, 1363. And we're going to do 4-bed, 4-bath, 3474. So huge property. That's huge. So there is an HOA. So this probably wouldn't even make sense for me. HOA, or this would not make sense for me. But let's just go to the analysis piece. All right. So the debt information. The property is hybrid creative. How do we know? Well, first here it says hybrid, right? But because there is a mortgage and there's seller financing, right? And that's really what I want you guys to understand, how easily we can calculate this stuff. The purchase price is $376,000 and the entry is $36,000. The entry is going to account for, it's not everything, right? It's not all the things you see here is not $36,000. The $36,000 is going to be a combination of down payment to seller, arrears or liens, if anything needs to get paid off at closing or if they're missing payments, an agent commission, and any wholesaler assignment fee is included in there as well. That is the most common way an entry fee is presented for creative financing. In addition, you will have, so let's highlight those things. I'm going to highlight them a specific color because I know how to use this calculator. So these are your entry costs. Okay, these you'll have, this is this 36,000. It'll be some combination of those. If you don't know how to break that out right now, who cares? For the sake of deal analysis, it doesn't matter how much of it goes to the seller, to the agent, to the sign. It does not matter as long as you know what the entry is. The closing costs and transaction coordinator costs and whatever else you have like that. So I have closing costs for the loan, like to acquire the property, title, and all that good stuff. I have admin / reimbursement costs because I raise all my money for my deals. I need to pay certain costs. I need to get reimbursed by my capital partners at closing. So if we are paying for the TC up front, which usually you pay a deposit, you're setting up the LLC for the property, you're doing an inspection. Those are all costs I'm going to pay through the due diligence. And then at the closing time, my capital partner brings the money and I get paid back those costs. So I make it very simple and separate those. And then if there's an acquisition fee involved, right? This is if you are getting paid as the person getting the deal, this is where you account for that. So we're going to do closing costs and reimbursement. This is really what the CC plus TC fee is right there. Let's change that to I don't know, just blue color. And then this is you will never see a wholesaler never put renovation costs to get the property rent ready, right? They will not put that, or your reserves. It's not really their job to account for that. It's your job. So I'm going to highlight that another color because that's never included in the entry fee. That's for you to figure out. That's for you to figure out on your properties. They're not going to account for that. And we'll just set that as green. Who cares? And this acquisition fee, optional. More often than not, you're going to have $0 as an acquisition fee, especially if you're raising money. Sometimes you get a little bit. Sometimes, I mean, I've gotten up to 10K depending on how great the deal is, but it just really depends on how much work I had to do and how great the deal is for us and our partners. So to account for that entry cost, 36,000, say purchase price is 376 and the entry is 36. So purchase price 376,000. And we're going to say the entry fee, don't worry about this 10%, just set it to 36,000. You can just hard code that. The loan amount that you're taking over subject to is 291,572. Okay? See that here? 291,572. And it says the seller finance amount is 48,428, which is exactly what's here. 48,428 for the seller finance, right? Not surprising. For the seller finance loan, you're going to put these terms here per month at 3%. No surprise that the payment they say at 204 for this loan amount at 3%, or this loan at 3% is $204 payment. That's what's calculated here. The remaining loan amount, right? The purchase price minus the cash to the seller, those entry costs, seller, agent, wholesaler, whatever, minus the loan amount you're taking over is what is the seller finance. That's the remainder of their equity. And at 3% interest rate over 30 years, which is the common amortization schedule, if you paid it in full in 30 years, every single payment, it would pay it off. The payment for that is $204. One thing I want to add is because there's a balloon in 10 years on this 48,000, I already had this set at 10 years. It's saying if your first payment was June 1st, 2025, in 10 years, the 48,000, you would have $36,000 remaining of that loan to pay off, right? Even though you're making these payments each month, that's how much you're going to have to pay off in 10 years of that original loan amount. That's how much is left to pay off. Next, the subject to loan, right? The payment for seller finance is very easy. Subject to, you have to recreate the original loan or just copy their monthly PITI, their principal and interest of the loan, taxes and insurance, right? That's the PITI, that's your mortgage. So the way to do that is you're going to need to go on PropStream and get the original loan terms. For the sake of this, we're not going to recreate the original loan. Yeah, we're not going to recreate the original. Well, how much time is there? Well, my concern is if I do it, this video is going to come down off YouTube at some point because they don't like to see that info. So I don't want to include that info. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull the information and put it there. For anyone who's a super investor, you obviously have access to that, lots of trainings and all that good stuff. I include it in Wealth Through Real Estate as well, but I can't do it on this live video. Sorry. So I'm going to just pull the information and just tell you right now. I just can't share like the seller's information basically. So mortgage. All right. What they're saying is Oh, whoops, it's a different property entirely. There it is. I was gonna say that interest rate is very different. All right, mortgage info. So they're saying the loan started, right? The original sub 2 loan, it was $310,337. The interest rate we know from here, 3.25%. PropStream does not get that one right, but it estimates pretty closely. It actually said 3.25, but you're gonna need a mortgage statement to verify that. And that's what they have for here for that. And then the first payment date, when did this loan start? Well, the loan is due in full May 31st, 2052. So we will assume the loan started 30 years prior because it says the loan term is 360 months. That's 12 months a year times 30 years is 360. So that loan started 30 years prior to the loan being due. So essentially the loan is due June 1st, 2052. We can assume the first payment was June 1st, 2022. Look at that. I almost guessed that right. And it's saying the loan payment is $1,350.61. Well, we know the PITI, the mortgage payment, is $2,394. So that means the remainder, $2,394 minus the monthly loan payment, some of it's going to taxes, some of it's going towards insurance, and if there's an HOA here, so some of it's going towards HOA, and it says there's a $38 HOA fee, right? So we need to do this. Once you fill this piece out, you recreate the loan, it automatically puts that right here. So it automatically puts that right here. So now you know you're paying these two, right? And then it spits into the fixed expenses, subject to loan payment, seller finance loan payment. And then we need to make sure that property tax, insurance, and PMI, if there is one, or at least the tax and insurance, we're going to assume there isn't one here, accounts for $1,043.39. If you do that by the year, $12,520.72.51. $72. We can look up the taxes. I said I don't really want to get into comping, but I'll look up the tax. That's a pretty big monthly payment. But the taxes on this property are like, we're up to $8,000 in payments in 2023. Why? I'm not 100% sure why, but that's $8,000. That makes sense, right? And then the insurance is pretty high there. So if this is 8,000 the fort of that, so let's just put the amount that is there, 8173. That's what it was in 2023. And then what's left is, we'll say equals this amount minus this amount is $4,348. That's a lot for insurance. I'm sure there's something else in there, but let's put that in there. 4,348. $360. I mean, this is Houston, right? And Houston's got a lot of, issues there. So, oh, cool. Very newly remodeled property, which is great. But so let's zoom out and let me just explain everything that we just did. So we have done up to this point is we have all of our property information. We have all of the information that we can get from the wholesaler in regards to the entry costs, right? The $36,000 here, actually, what we need to do is, because we don't know how much of the entry goes towards arrears, agent, wholesaler, we already accounted for the full 36. We're going to zero out the agent commission portion and the assignment fee to the wholesaler, because this 36,000 includes the amount to the seller, agent, arrears, assignment fee, right? We just don't know how it's broken down yet until we can ask the wholesaler that info. But either way, for analysis, we already know that's there. Closing costs, we're estimating at 2%, which then also we have our additional closing costs for transaction coordinator, LLC, inspection, all that good stuff. And then rehab and furnishings, I set it to $1,000 minimum, regardless of strategy, because just that minimum, getting a cleaner in there for a full house clean is going to cost you several $100s anyway. Gives you a little bit of buffer on that. And then my carrying cost of reserves are 3 months of the next, 3 months of payments being raised up front for reserves. You can set that to 0. Just know you're gonna have to deal with it if you have renovations to do and all that. And you didn't count for these expenses. But we did that. We said this was a hybrid, creatively financed deal. We said the purchase price, the cash to enter the deal. We did the subject to loan amount we were taking over, seller finance loan, created the seller finance loan, right? And then ensure that the payments made sense. recreated the original subject to loan, and determined of the PITI they gave us, the 2394, we determined 1350.61 is the subject to loan payment, and the remainder $1,043 for the taxes, like for the PITI. Like that's how we got to, look, when I click those values, it's 2394. No surprise, that's what our PITI here was, 2394. So all we did was we just backed into that amount, right? And usually you have a pretty good idea of what the taxes are because that's publicly available information. Whereas insurance, you're estimating until you get their policy and understand maybe if you're doing a different strategy, you're going to need even higher policy. So now that we got time, I've shown you very simply how you can, well, very simply is putting it lightly, very simple for me, but simple enough for you guys, how you can use this calculator to analyze a hybrid creative deal. Now let's see, we understand the entry and the debt information, right? And some of the expenses. Let's figure out what it would be as a co-living rental. So let me zoom out a tiny bit. The first thing we want to do is figure out, what we're going to want to do is see how many rooms we can add to this property. It's 4-bed, 4-bath, 3,400 square feet. You would think a lot, and I would expect a lot as well, but let's see. Is this the property, Oakleaf? Let me go to a different, where's Zillow? There we go. Look at that, it's on market, pending, right? It might be under contract with the wholesaler, it might be pending. I don't know who it's pending by, but we're going to check. Okay, so it went pending for sale. So it was sitting for 2 months. They offered them, oh no, it was sitting for a lot longer than that. They were looking for $350 originally. Man, this thing's been sitting. They've been trying to sell this thing for a long time. This is how you know it's a good candidate for creative. They've been trying to make this thing work for a long time. Looks like maybe it was the land that was for sale. They improved the house. Maybe the house was that cheap. I don't think so, but all right, 329. What did they have it listed for here? 376. They gave them their original price they were looking for a long time ago. That's how they structured the creative piece, right? They structured it creatively because they said, hey, we're going to give you the price you originally wanted, but you're going to let us take over this great debt here and very low interest rate on this loan. That's awesome. That's a win-win potentially if the deal makes sense. So I was just showing you kind of how I look at it. I pieced the story together as someone who did a lot of direct acquisitions to sellers and agents. This was a big part of it, is understanding kind of the journey for the property to be sold and why creative might make sense for it. All right, let's see if we have anything on property layout. Oh, come on. Every single agent should be doing that now. All right, so we're going to look just at these photos. There's nothing for property layout. It's fine. Decent yard, simple garage, simple driveway. There's not a ton of space. This potentially could be a bedroom, right? This could be easily blocked off just right here on this wall. So that's potentially the 5th bedroom. And it wouldn't impact, I mean, it's right next to the kitchen. So those are kind of the worst bedrooms to have, like right next to the kitchen, because those tend to have a lot of noise. But this would have a ton of space for all your tenants, which is great. Okay. This is a little dining area. This could be another fridge. Huh? It's a little weird. These bottles, they lead into this area. This could potentially, but then it would block off this room. Let's see what that room is. They didn't do a really good job of telling the story of this property. This one could be a room. It looks like it. I don't know if they're already counting it for it as a room or not. This is obviously a room. So this is when you send a contractor over, like I just had to do in Atlanta, to verify, hey, how many rooms do you think I can add to this property? Like, what are the actual bedrooms? And then what are the extra areas that can be converted over? And what do you anticipate the cost would be for that? Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. All right. So I think we saw the 4 bedrooms. This one's one of them. Oh, it's part of the bedroom, part of the bedrooms. I don't think this was considered a bedroom. I think that's number 5. This might be too small. We'd have to get measurements and we have to see what these doors lead into. I don't really know. So maybe this could be 6. And then living room. Like, what is this? lead into? Maybe just a closet. That'd be excellent. This could be one right here as 6, and then potentially 7 right here. Just a nice big room. Even though it does have the kitchen there, you're going to want to, you're going to definitely want to insulate that wall really well so it doesn't make a lot of noise. All right, so I think that's potentially 7 right there. Let's see what they say in the description too. Something they say bonus, den, whatever. 4-bedroom home with 2 additional rooms from a conversion. There you go. 4 with 2 additional rooms. So those are the 2 that we kind of saw, I believe. And then that big living room can be converted. And certain times you can see, let's see if it's on here. PropStream definitely shows you the number of total rooms. No, it's not on here. All right, so we're going to go with the 7. 2 of them look like they'll be fairly, one of them looks like it's basically a room. Just need to add a closet. You could even do a pop-up closet. The other 2 would need walls. The living room would need a big wall, right? And then the other little room with those water bottles would be just another wall. But yeah, 1 wall. I had a window already, so that's great. Both the living room and that had a window, so that'd be an easy conversion. So let's go to the, where am I looking for? There we go. So we're going to go with, so this is already 4 beds, right? 4 bath, which is great. We're not going to add any more bathrooms. Usually you want a 4 to 1 max, 4 bedrooms to 1 bathroom as the max. 3 bedrooms to 1 bath is more ideal. But at 4 bathrooms for, potentially 7 rooms, that's awesome. So let's zoom in a little bit more. We're going to just do co-living for this example. That's what I wanted to show you guys for this one. I wouldn't even look at this as a midterm or short-term, just FYI. Why would you? Short-term rentals, it's already hard enough to do co-living with something with an HOA. Short-term rentals are absolutely a no-go, especially this far out from the main city. What would draw people to this? This makes sense because people need housing, affordable housing, and they'd be willing to drive a little further to save on their expenses. So we already have 4 additional originally, and we're going to do 3 more. On average, it takes $6,500 to build a room. Depends on your market, depends on how many walls you're adding. One of these, honestly, so 1 room basically built. But because the living room is such a big one, and the other room is going to need potentially 2 walls, and then you probably want a closet and all that, I would stick with a $6,500 for all 3, and then get your contractor in there to get you an actual quote. You're not going to ever know this number until you get a contractor in there or you're already established in this market. I've never done a renovation in Houston. I have no freaking idea what the cost would be there, but on average, this is what we roughly see is $6,500 per room that we're doing, as long as it's nothing crazy. You're adding 1 or 2 non-load bearing walls. One of the guys in here, thanks, Kiefer, he said he can go and look at the property. No worries on this property. I would not buy this property because the HOA. It's a no-go for me. And I automatically set it that each of the total bedrooms, so the 3 we're adding and the 4 that are here, so 7 times $1,500 a room is the furnishing cost. $1,500 is more than it costs us to furnish the bedrooms on average. However, that extra amount also accounts for furnishing the common areas. So that accounts for furnishing the kitchen, outdoor space, things like that as well. And the bathrooms, like all that kind of good stuff. That's what that accounts for. So in total, with these additional renovations and furnishing costs, we're looking at $87,000 entry. So right around $90,000 entry to get into this deal, to acquire it, to renovate it, to furnish it, and some reserves, right? We said there's some reserves here of $10,000 roughly, 3 months of payments. All right, so now we need to look up the income for private bathrooms and shared bathrooms. And why do I break it up that way? Because that's exactly the way it's broken up on Pad Split. So if we go, so in Houston in general, right, they have, I'm going to have to move my head so you can see, but around 1,400 units between active and upcoming. The demand, right, they have 15,700 people roughly have searched in the last 30 days for a rental on the Pad Split platform in Houston, which is great. The weekly rate for a shared bathroom is $169. For a private bathroom is $247. So if you have a private bathroom, you're making significantly more per that room a week than you would with a shared bathroom. When you multiply that by 4.3, it's 4.3 weeks in a month on average. That's a substantial difference, right? That's what, 30, 50, it's $80. It's over $300 extra per month, roughly. Almost $400 difference per month between a private bathroom and a shared bathroom. And if I move my head, you'll see the occupancy too. On average, these properties are 80% occupied. So for every 5 rooms, 4 of them are on average full. And the first booking is within 10 days, and it takes around 42 days, so close to a month and a half to get the full, to get the a month and a half to get it to 80% occupancy, right? For us, I'll be transparent. We have basically 100% occupancy at all our properties because remember, these are the averages. We are always better than the averages. If I showed you what these properties look like, some of the competition, you'd say, oh yeah, I see. Well, this is your average, right? You're dealing with, not to say everyone's bad. That's not how averages work, but that's the average. 50% are worse, 50% are better than that. And you'll see a variety in Houston, a lot in Houston. Actually, these are pretty good compared to some, but like this one doesn't even show. It's like, show me my room. Where am I staying? Show me some cool amenities. Show me something there that attracts. And we're specifically looking more in this area. So let's see, there's really not a lot in this area. It's even another sign. So there was one here that's fully rented out from $190 a week. 206. This is closer, right? The Sheldon area is closer. Wood Forest. Sheldon, Channel View. Oh, okay. It's a little more inland than that. Oh, okay, Cloverleaf. So this is roughly what we're looking at here. We have some that are fully rented out. This means join the wait list. This is much lower cost. Like it's a really nice photo right there. This one's a little more expensive. It could be because of the fact that it's I mean, these aren't great photos. I don't, it's like someone took a photo with like a potato or something and then uploaded it. Not all of them are like that. Oh, you got a little home gym. I assume that people live on site. It's a little, oh, and you're asking multiple people per one room. That's another, typically a no-go on pads, but so I'm confused as to why that's allowed. Maybe there's changes. Forms available. Shared full bathroom. I've never even seen such a thing. They're trying to get $206 for a shared full bath. That's incredible. It's like incredibly high. They're going for $309 for a private room, private bathroom. Crazy. This is definitely on the higher side. In Houston alone, we just saw those numbers. That's definitely on the higher side. Don't get me wrong, we tend to be above the market rent as well, but you can't go so far above market rent that it makes no sense. 50 people have viewed this today. Look at that. So people are looking at this one. There's only one room available at $155 a week. This is below average, but let's see. Standard room size, full bath, shared full bathroom, full bed. So we almost always do queen, right? That's one of the ways we stay above average. We do queen beds. There's literally no amenities. It's not that they don't have space. They could literally throw a desk in here. That is so huge for most people to have a desk in their room. I think a lot of people like to just eat in their room and hang out in their room. So there's very little in here, but they only have one room left. They've literally booked out all the other rooms in this house. So they know what they're doing. So if they're getting 155 is what they're looking for, you can obviously get more than that if you include your desk, if you include your queen bed for a shared. And based on the data that we saw, 169, yeah. So that makes sense. They're a below average listing. They're making below average rental income with what they're looking for. And they still have the majority booked out. All right. And then we're going to go to our zip code 77015. So it's 160 per shared, 281 per private. See, that's the problem when it's smaller sample size. There could be one that's renting for that amount, but it does not mean that that's going to be the case moving forward. So you can see even Houston is lower than that on average. Whoops. See, Houston's lower than that on average, but then a secondary market to it, right, is more because the sample size is so small. Average occupancy, first days of booking, all this stuff is moot for this scenario. What we'll do is we'll use Houston data for the sake of this example just to show you how you would do it. So what we see here is it's for bed. I'm going to assume 2 of them are ensuite baths. I cannot recall. We'll quickly look, but ensuite means the bathroom is attached to a bedroom and it's exclusive to that bedroom. And I think 2 of them were shared. It's hard to tell unless you get someone to walk through, though. That's the thing. Yeah, see, it's hard to tell from that one. So this one looks like bathroom right there. The same one. Got 2 kids in there. This one's got an ensuite. I think that's that bathroom. This one does not look like it has a bathroom. Looks like, see, there's a shared bathroom. You see how it's past the hallway? Looks like all 4 are full as well. It's not just half baths, which is great. Doesn't say specifically, but you can also look. So 4 full bathrooms right here on the listing. Does it mean it's 100% right? No, that's one thing you want to verify, but I just want to show you over years of looking at this stuff where I've been able to find certain pieces of information. All right. So let's see. All right, so let's do the analysis on this one. We said, let's get the pad split data. We're going to use pad split Houston area data. Okay. Let me just do this. All right, so we have 2 that have private bathrooms, and we have the rest, the 2 that were included plus the 3 that we're adding are going to share a bathroom. So it's 5 total. If you have this number off, if you say there's 3 that you're adding and there was 4, so it should be 7 total bedrooms. If this is off and you have 2 and 4, you're going to break the code. It's going to say adjust the rooms. Or if you say this is 6, because your number of rooms total here is not matching with the number of rooms you said you have and you're adding. So it's very imperative that you account for that. So like the right amount. So we saw it was $247.84. Oh, yeah, for private, and then $169.81. So our monthly income, right? This takes the weekly, this calculates the monthly. So it's multiplying this by the number of weeks in a year, and then dividing by the number of months, right? It's a little complicated, but that's how you get the monthly. It's just automatically done for you. So this property weekly brings in $1,345 and monthly brings in $58.27. However, you're going to have additional expenses. So you have your fixed expenses, which are your, right? We calculated that. It's your sub 2 loan payment, seller finance loan payment, taxes, insurance, and then your HOA, which was like 40 something bucks. $38. Once again, I'm not a fan of buying HOA areas. You can do whatever you want. For me, it's not really a thing that I like to do. We're going to account for additional insurance because they're probably owner occupying this property. They live there, right? And so they have a regular policy, but now we're going to get a landlord policy that also allows rent by the room. It'll probably cost you $100 to $200 more a month. You can account for that right here for this strategy. Water and sewer, we're going to estimate, we're just going to stick with the preset values. It's why it's important you understand your market and talk to local investors in the markets that you're investing in to know roughly what do the utilities cost, right? You could even ask the homeowners for their utility information to get a rough idea. Hey, I'm going to use this as a rental. I'm going to pay for the utilities. I want to know on average, what does water cost you? Gas and electric, garbage, internet and Wi-Fi. They probably have internet and Wi-Fi. Get all that information. These are good placeholder values. Landscaping, house cleaning. So this is assuming house cleaning 1 time a quarter roughly, right? 1 to 2 times a quarter. You're going to clean the common areas of the house. You don't have to do that. We don't always do that. But if you want to account for that, you account for that. If you're going to provide any supplies, it's assuming $50 a month for supplies, just general common area supplies. Oh, I'm in midterm rental. There we go. Same concept though. And then pad split management fee. Well, you have to pay pad split to utilize their platform for management, not for gathering data, but for the management. If you're going to use pad split to list your property, what pad split does for you is this equivalent of what Airbnb does for short-term rentals. It's a place for you to list your properties, and a lot of people are on that site, like on Airbnb, to find short-term rentals. Is the same thing for pad split, CoLiving, right? A lot of people are looking for rent by the room on the pad split platform, so you're paying them for their marketing. They help you find the tenants. They screen the tenants, right? Internally, they do that on their platform. They collect the rental income from the tenants, and then it comes to you afterwards. And then they also allow you to communicate with the guests on the platform. That's what you're paying for. And you pay 8% of your monthly income to them, but you also pay 100% of your first 10 days of income when a new tenant moves in. You don't know what I'm talking about? It's here. I'll just quickly show you. The first 10 days that someone moves in, they keep 100%. And then after that, it's 8%. All right. On average, that approximates around 12% a year. That's why it says 12%. Usually you can find another property manager at low cost to do the back end management of that, or you can self-manage. That's how you're going to determine what this other fee is. Or if you don't use pad split and you set that to 0, you can probably find someone for between 15 to 25%, depending on your market and your connections. And they also have pad split. Pad split also has resources for you, but they tend to be those that work with a pad split platform. We're going to stick with a 12 and 5, which is the common one that we go with. The vacancy at this property we saw, it has a very high vacancy, or it has a 80% occupancy, which means 20% of the time it is vacant, right? 100% minus 80%, 20% of the time it is vacant. So your vacancy is 20% here. That's pretty huge. That's going to kill most deals, that level of vacancy. Remember, that's average. You should be above average, but I want you to also be conscious of if you're estimating things that are inaccurate, you're going to have a very high risk of things going wrong. Next is going to be maintenance and capital expenditures, and 6% is a solid amount for co-living rental income. This is saying 6% of this total income is set aside for reserves for maintenance and capital expenditures, replacing your roof in the future, plumbing issues, whatever. That's what that's setting aside. The rule of thumb for long-term rentals is 10%. However, long-term rentals, it's going to make half, if not less, income than this. So the actual dollar amount is higher for co-living, even at a lower percentage. So that being the case, this property brings in $58.27. Your expenses and reserves are $58.92. What's that mean? You're losing money each month. It's pretty close to neutral, but you're losing money every single month on this property, right? You are losing money every single month on this property between your income minus your expenses, minus the management, minus the reserves. So then even if you divide that by your entry costs, right? Or your total entry cost right here, your cash on cash return is negative. Your cash on cash return is how hard is your money working for you. Well, if you put in any amount of money and it loses you money every month, well, it's not working very hard for you. You're losing money. Does not mean there are not other benefits like appreciation, debt pay down, all that good stuff. And you can see very quickly with the the long-term deal analysis section, you can see very quickly, let's get rid of this now. You can see very quickly some of those other benefits, appreciation, debt pay down, tax benefits. So you're getting a lot of returns overall, but the cash flow is negative. That's not great. Over time, that cash flow will increase, but most people are not willing to lose money after putting money into the investment, right? They want cash flow and appreciation as a bonus, debt pay down as a bonus, tax benefits as a bonus, right? The lower the interest rate on the loans, the better, the more debt pay down you get, which is great. These are really low. So what can you do? You can potentially try to renegotiate the deal. You can try and see if you can get a vacancy higher than this. You can, see if you can get property management at a lower cost than this. Maybe there's a way for you to add another private bathroom. I wouldn't go that route because it's going to cost a lot. It's like $15,000+ depending on where it's located to add a bathroom, and it takes a decent amount of time. Or just understand this deal doesn't work, or you potentially renegotiate some of the monthly costs. Well, the only really thing you can negotiate is the seller finance payments. But even if you set this to 0 payment, right? No payment, 0 payment, that's still only another $200 of income. That's still not a great deal. It's still only cash flowing you less than $200. The cash on cash return is really low. And my goal, I want at least $1,000 per property. And I want 15% or higher cash on cash return because I'm going to split that with my capital partners, right? Either it's a private money lender or private money partner. We're going to split that. I'm going to either pay interest or split those benefits. I want to get close to $1,000 a month for the deals that I'm investing in. Personally myself. So this is closer to $1,500 to $2,000 when what I'm really looking for. But depending on if you're self-managing, is your own money, whatever, your goals are your goals. So the big thing here would be the vacancy. I mean, see if you can get some better numbers for that local area. See if you can talk to local property managers and reduce these costs. This could be a deal for someone. It's just not a deal for me. And let's say this was a deal. I'm going to fake stuff real fast just so you can see. If this was a property that made 752 and 9.4% cash on cash return, the beauty of this private money partner tab is you can say, okay, here's the total entry cost, 94, 456, or what I like to do is I'll go in once I know what the final entry is, I'll hard code this value to something solid. So 95, 500 or 96, whatever. So solid number. Got to pull in here. Your private money partner brings in $95,500. They get 50% ownership and 50% cash flow. These are their returns. These are your returns. These are the total property returns. Their return on investment, their cash on cash return, right? Their cash flow divided by the entry is 5% cash on cash return. Their return on investment is 21.3% when you account for the cash flow, the appreciation, the debt pay down, and the tax benefits, right? You get interest payments and depreciation are tax deductible. When you get those tax benefits, altogether, their return on investment is 21.3%. That's solid. However, most people are not willing to lose cash flow to get there. And remember, we just changed some of the income that wasn't actually accurate for this specific scenario. You can also say, hey, they're going to bring in, let's say you bring in 15,500. So then they would bring in 80,000. You bring in this much, they bring in that much. What do the returns look like now for each partner, right? This is when I tell people, you know, I literally help people, my super investors, right? Some people are like, hey, yeah, I'm going to use $100,000 to get into my next deal. When I say, well, how about you take that money, invest in your education so you can learn how to raise money to do these deals, put a small amount into a larger portfolio of deals to build your credibility, and then leverage by putting some skin in the game to buy these deals, but then raising the majority of the funds. This is how you can take that same $100,000 and instead of buying one property, now you're educated, you have ownership in multiple properties, and you have raised significant amounts of money to buy 3 to 4 more properties. That same $100,000 can buy you 4 properties that you raise capital, fractional ownership into multiple deals, and education instead of buying it in one property. People don't think that way sometimes, though, and that's up to you. I personally learned after two-ish years in my investing journey, I would much rather pay money to learn and expedite my journey than I would by paying my time, because I can always make more money. And usually what I'm investing in, I know I'm going to get way more in return than what I put in, as long as I take action. What I will never get back is time. So if I can get the same results or better in less time through better strategies or learning from someone who's ahead of me, that is exactly what I want to do. And this is exactly one of those cheat codes that I share to super investors and show them exactly how to structure these types of deals so they can make their money stretch further. So if you are someone who's a real estate investor with a deal or 2 under your belt, or even we have people that started with 20 properties on their belt, but they need to implement some creative financing, some capital raising, but not just capital raising. How do you get the most bang for your buck? It's one thing to raise money on a deal and give the whole house away. People are giving 70, 80, 90% of their ownership away so they can raise money to buy a deal. What's even the point? So you get $200 of cash flow and keep 10% of the property that you're going to spend all this time and energy on? No. So you're going to raise money to buy deals using none of your own money and keep more of the overall investment yourself and maximize your returns through co-living. That is what super investors is exactly for. If you are someone who's a good fit for that, you think, hey, I need to advance myself, I need to advance my skills, then come join super investors. If you're a brand new investor just getting started, don't have money set aside, don't have reserves, well, maybe it's not the right fit for you. Go take advantage of Wealth through Real Estate. I literally created this to help you guys on your journey. That's why there's 1,200 people with little to no marketing besides these calls, right? Like little to no marketing, so that you guys can take advantage of this. You guys can take advantage of this information and improve your skills. All right. With that being said, appreciate you guys. If you're interested in talking to me about super investors, seeing if it's the right fit for you, let's see. There's that. And there's that. I'll drop that in there. Just DM me. Reach out. I'm a freaking normal person. You can reach out to me. I don't have no fancy funnels or tunnels or whatever, all these links and all that. I have some things for you guys, but just reach out to me. Comment. DM me. Most of you guys have my number. Text me. Let's make sure you're the right fit for the community. You'll get the most out of it. If not, I'll just point you in the right direction because I provide so much freaking free value. I mean, like, look at my YouTube. My YouTube, people pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for the same information that I just provide to most of you guys for free. I give you like long, extensive videos to help you on your investing journey. Take advantage of it if you're serious of becoming a real estate investor that's financially free through real estate, right? All right, y'all. I appreciate you. Thank you. And I will see you all next time.